The Long Peace. Before he was sealed, the Black Mage cast a final curse upon the heroes, causing them all to be frozen in ice. Amidst the ruins of Leafry, a member of the Silent Crusade, having traveled back centuries from the present, appeared and ran into a unconscious Iran. The spirit of the Polar Maha explained that he was planning to transport Iran to the frozen island of Rien in order to slow down the Black Mage's curse. However, he had been damaged during the fight and lost much of his strength. After the Crusader helped repair Maha, the spirit used the last of his power to take his master to Rien, where she eventually succumbed to the Black Mage's curse and frozen ice. The Crusader then encountered Afrian, along with an unconscious Frood and Mercedes. Afrian was able to recognize that the Crusader had come from the present and explained that he had taken the Black Mage's curse in Frood's place. Through the power of the Spirit Pact, he asked that they find his egg, which had been lost deep in the forest. The Crusaders successfully returned the egg back to Afrian, who asked for a final favor. He explained that Mercedes had been gravely injured, but that she could survive with the Crusaders' help. With the Crusaders' consent, Afrian extracted a portion of their life force and created a crystal, which the Crusader then used to bring Mercedes back from the brink of death. Author's note: this all happens during the Silent Crusade storyline, when you travel back in time to stop Arcarium from breaking the seal on the Black Mage. This is also an instance of a causal loop, as the Crusaders' actions that shaped the past were what allowed for the future in which they exist to happen. After the Crusader left, Mercedes awoke and spoke with Afrian, who warned that the Black Mage's curse would affect her kingdom, as the destiny of the elves were tied to that of their ruler. Author's note: this plot point was expanded on in the revamped Ellen Forest questline 11 years later. It asserted that the destiny of any fairy ruler, regardless of their race, was tied to that of their subjects. In the game, there are three races of fairies: elves, sylphs, and nymphs. Sylphs are the fairies that you see in Alinea, while nymphs are the long-winged fairies you see in Orbis, such as Creel the Fairy. The divine beast of Erev, Shinsu, guided the way for Athena Pierce and the survivors of Leafry towards the southern plains of Victoria Island. Author's note: the southern plains of Victoria Island are roughly where Hennesis is. I wonder if Athena was hoping to take them to LOL, but just didn't know where exactly it was, since the whole area split from Assyria. However, dragons attacked the airship, and the refugees crashed in the middle of Ellen Forest instead. Cut off from the outside world, the refugees set up Altair camp and began the task of colonizing the dangerous forest. In spite of the many challenges they faced, the refugees were able to push back the various monsters that attacked their camp and established a community. Among the refugees were Euris and Tess, the wife and son of the great pirate Destinin. Euris was pregnant with their second child, whom she decided to name Kieran. Soon after, the fairy queen Ephenia grew corrupted after her hatred for the humans who disrespected fairies was stoked by was stoked by a mysterious black-robed man named Kristen, a follower of the Black Mage. Convinced by Kristen to follow the Black Mage and his ideals, Ephenia sought the destruction of all humans. Together, they conspired to kill the people of Altair Camp by poisoning Ellen Forest with a toxin that contained the Black Mage's power. As the fairy ruler's destiny was tied to that of their subjects, the fairies in the forest were also corrupted through their ties to the fallen Ephenia. Around this time, a mysterious traveler who claimed to have come from the future arrived in Altair Camp. The traveler helped the refugees in their exploration of Victoria Island and managed to kill Ephenia, thus lifting the corruption of the forest. Author's note: the lore of Ellen Forest was actually quite different before the game's time travel mechanics were established in the revamped storyline. In the original lore, Altair Camp was helped by Cal, a mysterious stranger who disappeared soon after arriving on Victoria Islands. Later on, Cal reappears and seemingly has no knowledge of their time in Ellen Forest. Kao is actually the player character from the future who fought the Black Mage in the Arcane River and lost. Hoping to change this future, Kao attempted to go back in time and warn their past selves. This is where the Kao plotline gets messy, because Kao is referred in three places: Ellen Forest, the Temple of Time, and the original Explorer storyline. What most people theorized was that Kao overshot and landed in Ellen Forest, where they lost their memories and became a refugee before they likely regained those memories. While attempting to go back to their own time, Kao likely lost their memories again and somehow ended up in the Temple of Time, where they became the amnesiac temple keeper that we know. Kao's actions in Ellen Forest were what caused Tess in Ellen Forest to remember them, which is why Tess called the explorer by the name Kao in the original Explorer storyline. Kao's story was eventually reorganized, and those references in Ellen Forest and the Explorer storyline were removed, with a precise timeline being established about Kao's actions in the Arcane River and how they ended up going back in time through the gate of the past. Even though Altair Camp was saved, Yuri succumbed to the poison and died shortly after giving birth to Kieran. Meanwhile, Destinin found Kristen's tent while exploring Victoria Islands and found several research notes indicating that Kristen had grown enamored by the mystery of the Black Mage's ideals and planned to revive him. Believing that there was a chance that his sealing was not intentional, he also learned that Kristen had uncovered a prophecy regarding the first explorer, and that he was concerned that the power of the adversary, imbibed within the maple leaves, would be an obstacle to the Black Mage's revival. Suddenly, Kristen returned to the tent and cursed Destinin's bloodline with a spell that would persist until the Black Mage's death, which created a cursed mark on Destinin's face. Destinin returned to Altair Camp and managed to explain what had happened to Athena Pierce and Tess before he passed away. Tess soon discovered that the blood curse had passed on to him and an infant Kieran, with half of Destinin's curse mark appearing on his neck and the other half manifesting on Kieran's hand. He also learned that the curse worsened the closer their proximity was. In order to save both their lives, Tess decided to leave Kieran and Athena Pierce and went on a quest to find a way to break the curse. Author's note: Destinin's storyline diverges from his original lore here. What originally happened was that Destinin remains convinced that the Black Mage will return and leaves on a journey to find traces of him, never to return. During the war, Alicia was severely damaged by the Black Mage after he attempted to take her transcendent powers, which caused the World Tree to wither away. During the evacuation of Leafrey, Athena Pierce secretly brought her along with the refugees after they crashed on Victoria Islands. Alicia helped the refugees set up Altair Camp. Soon after, she decided to keep her promise to see Ryud one last time and visited the Dragon Master's tower, along with the thorny bear cub that Ryud had given her, which had grown up since then. She found Ryud's frozen corpse still kneeling in place and told him that because of his sacrifice, brave heroes had gathered at the site of the beacon and united together, eventually managing to seal the Black Mage. She also told him that she herself had helped those heroes after being moved by his bravery, though she dismissed it as merely an act of a mother protecting her child. Finally, she explained that his friend Hazel had manually activated the explosives to trigger the avalanche that held back Von Leon's forces, which resulted in his fiery death, and that Mylar spent his life force in order to accelerate the beacon spell. She gave a final farewell to Ryud and used her powers to scatter his body before setting the thorny bear free, telling it to live freely in the world that Ryud had given him, that had given his life to save. She then brought his sword to the Tower of Oz in his memory, after which she returned to Victoria Islands. There she created Root Abyss, deep beneath the World Tree, sealing herself away amidst the strong life energy in Sleepywood in order to recover from the Black Mage's attacks. Over time, the people of the Maple World began to rebuild their homes. Though the threat of the Black Mage had passed, monsters still hounded the survivors. Because the demon had served as a commander, the people of Leafrey developed a hatred for the demon race. They drove out the weak, peaceful demons who had left Tynerum in search of a better life, including Damien, and forced them to return to their homeland, where the purebloods subjected them to a brutal life of slavery. Author's note: The Heroes of Maple Blockbuster reveals that Damien was also forced to return to Tynerum. However, this might contradict the Damien webcomic commissioned by Nexon, which confirms that Arcarium recruited Damien immediately after Damien's home was destroyed. It's possible that Arcarium sent Damien to Tynerum in order to grow stronger and to raise his demon army. With his old friends cursed in frozen slumber, Brood struggled to find his place in the world that was slowly evolving without him. Determined not to let his friend's sacrifice be forgotten, he spent his time traveling the world, saving people from monsters and spreading the word of the heroes who had stopped the Black Mage. One day, however, Frood witnessed a man rushing forward to defend his village alone, rather than running away. This made him realize that what the people needed were heroes of today, not memories of heroes past. He decided to create a ring called the Sylph Ring, imbibing it with some of his powers and the memories of his friends. He passed it on to the hero who he had seen defending his home, in the hope that its power would serve as a faithful companion to him as Afrian did to Frood, and to ensure that the legacy of the heroes would remain in Maple World. However, Frood soon faced another problem. With the extinction of the Onyx dragons, humans began hunting lesser dragon species in hopes of claiming their powers, no matter how fractional they were compared to that of the Onyx dragons. In an effort to help the persecuted dragons, Frood imbibed some of his power into the Sylph Pendant, which Afrian had given him after forming their spirit pact. He gave the pendant to the dragons, hoping that it would protect them. However, when the dragons began to use the power of the Sylph Pendant to attack the humans, Frood sealed its power away until a worthy person could claim it. Some years later, Frood met with the remaining shamanists of Aswan. Together, they looked into the future and divined a prophecy. As the final battle approaches, the unshackled wolf will devour the spirit tree. Though he knew that that Maple World would one day be in grave danger again, Frood had faith that his friends would unite once more to face that threat. Because of this, he chose to leave the future in their hands. In order to make preparations, Frood sought a powerful relic known as the Transcendent Stone, which had the power to control or even destroy a Transcendent. He traveled deep into the Nihal Desert and found the Sanctum of Abraxas, where he discovered the relic of Abraxas, a massive airship. But though he was able to locate the Transcendent Stone with the relic, he could not pass through the dimensional barrier between Maple World and Earth, where the Transcendent Stone lay hidden. He returned the relic of Abraxas back to the Sanctum, where he had enchanted it so that only his successor could awaken the relic. On Maple Island, the first explorer from eons ago had become a legend, inspiring many others to follow in his footsteps and become explorers as well. The people built the towns of Amherst and South Perry, centered around the maple tree, which the first explorer loved dearly, and it was there that the brave and adventurous would begin their journeys to become explorers of the Maple World. Over the next few decades, the refugees who once struggled to maintain Altair Camp began to expand their territory by driving away the surrounding monsters. A time of growth began, with all of Victoria Island slowly becoming settled. A powerful thief named Laud, who was the pioneer of Altair Camp, helped found Kerning City after disagreeing with the way Athena Pierce ran the Altair Camp, and soon became the first Dark Lord. Athena, having been entrusted with Mistletoe, was immune to the curse that had frozen the elves. Author's note: I wonder if Mistletoe is a relic of an ancient god, since it has the power to withstand a Transcendence curse. However, with Eluel's borders closed, she could not return to her kingdom. Eventually, she helped found the city of Hennesis and became a prominent figure in the community. Crawls with Balrog, an infant refugee from a warrior tribe, would grow up to help found Parion, a barren land at the ruins of Sharenian, becoming its first chief and gaining the name Dances with Balrog. Over time, Ellen Forest gradually developed into Alinea, a town populated by the sylphs, one of the three species of fairies, alongside the nymphs of Orbis and the elves of Eluel. The sylphs were distrustful of human beings, although the efforts of a magician called Grendel helped improve fairy-human relations. In his youth, Grendel experimented with dark magic while attempting to bring a straw doll to life. When he accidentally cursed the doll instead, he dumped it in the forest. However, the Lupins who lived in the forest came in contact with the doll and transformed them into zombie Lupins. Grendel deeply regretted dabbling in dark magic and swore never to use it again. Over the years, he became extremely powerful and wise. As a wizard, he was capable of expanding his lifespan far beyond the capacity of a normal human, although he could not prevent the effects of aging. This earned him the moniker Grendel the Really Old. With Empress Arya having passed away with no children, the bloodline of the Empress had been severed, though her niece was next in line for succession. She had fled Arev after the Black Mage's attack and faded into obscurity. Without an empress to claim the power of Shinsu, Arev grew weaker in both power and influence. Author's note: we see in the Phantom storyline and the Cygnus' origin story that there was a Senate of Arev. Most likely, they continued to pass laws in the Empress's absence, while keeping it hidden from the rest of the Maple world that there was no ruling Empress. Nevertheless, an unprecedented peace began in the Maple world, lasting for several centuries as civilization began to rebuild and evolve. The powerful monsters throughout the world were hunted down, and as a result, the monster population grew significantly weaker.